The search operation at the volcanic eruption site of Indonesia's Mount Merapi came to an end on Wednesday after rescuers evacuated all hikers and found the body of the last missing one, taking the total death count to 23. The search for 10 missing hikers had resumed on Tuesday after being paused due to safety worries. The recovery of the final body was confirmed on Wednesday by Indonesia's National Search and Rescue Agency. The volcanic spewed a 3-kilometer, that's 9,800 feet high ash cloud into the air on Sunday, covering the surrounding villages in ash. There were 75 hikers in the region during that eruption. Most of them were evacuated and received treatment for burns. 12 injured victims are undergoing treatment in hospital. Well, Patrick Fok, DD India's correspondent, joining us from Singapore. Patrick, good morning. The rescue operation is now complete. What more details can you give us?
Yeah, that's right. So the rescue operation has, as you say, concluded on Wednesday, though there are about 200 people involved trying to find that one remaining climber that was still missing on Mount Merapi. There was faint hope of finding the unidentified person alive, and it has now, as you say, been confirmed that that person died also. And so the other thing rescuers did yesterday was to retrieve the 22 bodies of the dead victims on Mount Merapi. They had to bring them down. It was a very difficult operation. Remember, they had to bring them down by hand because air retrieval operations weren't possible in case of another eruption. And by all accounts, it was a harrowing experience for the victims. There is video circulating on social media of one of the victims who took a video of herself lying down with her face covered in ash, struggling to breathe. She was later confirmed to have died as well. That brings the total number of people that died in this eruption to 23 rather. It makes it the deadliest eruption since the eruption of 1979 in Mount Merapi, which saw 60 people die.
Okay, there have been recommendations for people not to be allowed to climb Mount Merapi. So why were they allowed to do so in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question. And as a matter of fact, Indonesia's volcanology agency said it had been issuing monthly letters for the last decade to authorities warning people of the dangers of climbing Mount Merapi. It said that climbers shouldn't be allowed to go to this peak. It said that they specifically shouldn't be allowed within a 3-kilometer radius of the crater. The Environment Agency of Indonesia said that it gave permits for the climbers to go ahead after getting the green light from various local agencies, including the West Sumatran provincial government, as well as the National Disaster Agency. So there is a bit of a question mark as to who's really to blame for all of this happening. As we know, Mount Merapi is one of 120 active volcanoes in Indonesia. It's on the Pacific Ring of Fire, so there's always a risk. But the thing, as we've said before, is that this eruption really took people by surprise because the source was so close to the surface. So there are going to be questions as to who is responsible for all of this. To a certain extent, people might blame the climbers themselves for taking the risk. But, also there are others that will say, well, it's up to authorities to issue warnings and to stop people from causing potential risk to themselves in these sort of circumstances.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Patrick, for joining us this morning on DD India.